We're going to begin part two, where we're going to describe each of the 12 impact skills. Part two, I'm going to kind of break into two recorded segments just to give it a little break. So we're going to begin with what each impact skill is and how you could support that within the classroom. So the very first impact skill that most employers are looking for is a strong work ethic. So this is also time as we do this presentation, as you work through this module, that we can kind of, every time I present, it happens to me where I kind of, as I'm describing these impact skills, I also reflect on my own self and what I bring to my profession every day. And some days are better than others. Some moments are better than others. So this is something that as we go through this module, it's good to just personally reflect on your own self and your own behaviors and your own qualities, as well as thinking about the students that you support each day and what you can do with these skills. So strong work ethic. First of all, this is not something that can be taught, but it certainly can be encouraged. We don't want to constantly tell students when they're not exhibiting strong work ethic, because that could just beat them down. But what we honestly want to do is find those moments in time during the day when they actually demonstrate a strong work ethic. And when they demonstrate a strong work ethic, they means it's that they're doing what it takes to get work done. So whatever the task is that they're working on, if they have if they exhibit the behavior that gets them to do the work, even if it's hard, even if it's a struggle, but they get it done. So what you can do is you can tell them those moments in time, like, you know what, you really showed a strong work ethic when you worked on that project. I'm really proud of you. And employers really, really like that. So again, talking to them in that way, instead of just, hey, you did a good job, but actually saying to them, you demonstrated strong work ethic. The second skill is a positive attitude, which especially with everything, all the challenges that we face on a day-to-day, home environments, work environments, school environments, having a positive attitude isn't always easy, but it does wonders for the work environment. So think about our own work environment. Like, what is it like when we have that colleague of ours that has that positive attitude? So think about the kiddos that you work with. Are they showing a positive attitude? And if they are, is it becoming contagious? Does it cause everybody else around them to have a positive attitude? And does it give the others in their vicinity some energy? So again, when a student is demonstrating a positive attitude, tell them that, hey, you're really showing a positive attitude. And sometimes they're not going to. So, hey, can you do something to turn this negative into positive? That type of thing. So, positive attitude. Another skill is excellent in communication and interpersonal skills. Okay, so when we're looking at these, we're looking at knowing how to communicate, whether it's in written form or in verbal form. So whether you're writing something to someone or whether you're talking to them, knowing how to communicate effectively. Many of our students with disabilities struggle with this. So they may be getting some related service personnel to come in and help them with speech and language, maybe some other therapies to help them to communicate. Maybe they use assistive devices to communicate their wants and their desires rather than using actual language. Knowing how and when to listen. This is really hard. Sometimes the time constraints of the day-to-day responsibilities don't allow us to truly, truly listen, but actually clearing our mind of what we want to say, clearing our mind of what we're thinking, and listening to someone talk. Being able to use some type of technology, not just to play games or things like that, but can you utilize devices to manage your calendar, to complete work efficiently? And the other thing about the communication and interpersonal skills is knowing the difference between formal and informal language, whether it's in writing or in discussion. So you would definitely want to tell your students when it's more appropriate to use a formal type of an address or a language as opposed to informal. I sometimes remind my 15-year-old son that, hey, I'm not your friend, so don't call me dude. I'm your parent. So I'm drawing that line and kind of telling him that there's the formal and informal. And kids are so accustomed to these quick talking to their peers that you have to definitely remind them that when you're talking to a teacher or a professional or a parent or your employer, that they would recommend the more formal language, unless the employer has given them permission to use a more informal approach. The next soft skill or impact skill is to be able to solve problems. Okay. Understanding that problems are inevitable, that they're going to come, they're going to happen, that every day we're going to face problems. And the appealing skill that an employer would really, really like to see is that this person has the ability to find a solution to those daily challenges. Okay. Not just throw their hands in the air and get mad or get frustrated and give up, but work on finding solutions. And then if you can't find the solution yourself, knowing how to seek out help or advice from others when challenges occur. So when you're working with students in your paraprofessional role, how many times do you see students actually solving problems on their own? Do they ask you for help? Do you offer help before they even ask? And if that's the case, could you maybe work with them and teach them how to ask for help, so that when they get into a job setting, they know where to go to ask for help? Um, and even asking their employer, what happens if I don't understand something? Who should I talk to? What should I do? So that they don't just give up and quit or not try to do their work. The next impact skill that I would want to talk about is time and project management. Okay, so these skills are key to getting assignments or work done on time. And you can use a variety of methods to accomplish these things. Knowing how to prioritize and plan an activity to be able to get the job done in the least amount of time. So, a lot of times when you're in the job setting or when you're in school, you're given assignments. And in a school setting, what you're going to have is you're going to have the teacher or you, the paraprofessional, kind of checking up and reminding them, are you working? Do you have this done? Do you have this done? What they need to start to realize is that kind of support and reminding is probably not going to happen in a job setting. Um, when my supervisor asks me to look into something or to do something and she needs it done by this amount of time, she's not checking with me every day to make sure I've done those things. She's going to assume that I am. And if I'm not able to do it, I'm going to have to seek out help from my colleagues, or I'm going to have to ask her for an extension. So making sure that you would be able to understand time and be able to work on getting things done in the time frame that is given by the employer. And when you see students doing that, when you see them mapping out their assignments and getting things done in a timely fashion, it's really, really good to compliment on demonstrating that skill. The next one that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to do a little, just a breathe break, is flexibility. Okay. So the way that companies do business in today's competitive marketplace is changing all the time. Last March, when we were impacted by COVID and we had to kind of go back and we had to shut down businesses and we had to limit people and exposure, it was amazing what businesses did. And in some cases, some of the businesses are going to keep some of those practices in place. But that's exactly a demonstration of flexibility, that we had to react to something that was going on in our world and we had to do it quickly. And change is hard for some, change is okay for others. and change is certainly something welcomed by others. But the ability to remain adaptable helps handle all those changes. So if you have a position, or if you're in the classroom and you have a student that kind of adjusts to changes, um, that is something to compliment. That, you really demonstrated flexibility when we had to switch our recess time, or when we had to switch, going to the gym, or we were supposed to go out on this trip but we couldn't because it rained. Thank you for showing flexibility and not getting upset. And I do know, I'm fully aware that some of the students that we are working with have disabilities that definitely impact their ability to be flexible. So it's important to remember flexibility in the context of the individual's disability. And this would be something that the student would want to disclose any inability to be flexible to an employer. If they have a certain disability that things have to be pretty regimented in a routine, that would be something that they would have to discuss with their employer to say, you know what, I'm not really, just by the nature of my disability, I don't adapt well to change. So could you please give me advance warning as much as possible, and that kind of thing. So definitely check for when students are being flexible and compliment them on that. We're going to take a little break, a little short break before we start up, and I'll see you back for the remainder of part 2. There are no questions to answer at the end of this one, but you can look at your anticipatory guide to see if there's anything you could answer for part 2 at this time.